That's right. So other than inflation, which is obviously a burning issue, and we'll follow up on that conversation subsequently here on Business Morning, another burning issue we started discussing yesterday is oil theft, which is adding pressure to that inflation number that you saw there. It's a major problem in Nigeria at this time, with the country losing billions and not even able to produce as much as 1 million barrels a day, which used to be a given before now. Yesterday, we talked to a stakeholder in the industry. Today, we want to talk to an economist who I believe will give us some data in case we have been in doubt on the issue of crude oil theft in the country, in Nigeria. We have in the studio Mr. Tosin Ige. He's a senior economist, impact research with ProShare Nigeria Limited. Good morning. Thank you so much, Mr. Ige, for your time this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so yesterday we spoke to someone who practices. Today I want to talk to you from the angle of data and your findings at ProShare about oil theft. How worried should Nigerians be about the issue of oil theft?
Oh, well, if we want to talk about how worried we should be when it comes to oil theft, I think one of our findings really is that across the globe, oil theft has become an issue that we can actually be synonymous to human trafficking, all those high-stake crime in Nigeria. So, of course, even our minister has talked about it being a national disaster. So really, we should be worried. Talking about the effect on all of our fiscal position and monetary. So we really should be worried, really. And that's why we have advanced this research into the book that will come up with the anatomy of crude oil, because we actually looked at all of those issues, the dimensions, and of course the scale, the structure of the industry that created the problem in the first place. So basically we're trying to, but then our primary objective, let me say, is actually to elevate the discussion of the issue of oil theft. And thank God you say you started it yesterday. So really, we want to elevate that discussion, because we believe that by doing that, everyone tend to see the issue. In fact, those in the oil-producing community also get to see this issue we're talking about, and of course, the effect on the nation, because for us, it is the issue is like a family that some members of the family are taking the resources that is meant to be for the entire family. You know, it's at the detriment of your family, being a member of that family. So that's
so are you, because our guest yesterday, Mr. Johnson Chukwu, did allude to the fact that one of the driving factors of this expanding industry in the oil theft is actually poverty in the host community. And you just mentioned the host community now, that perhaps it is that poverty that is at the root of this growing menace.
Definitely, we can't dissociate that poverty from this issue. And in fact, in one of our infographics there, we do something we call a power matrix. And now, in that instance, we're looking at it, we put economic and power of the nation against those of the oil thieves. And now we're looking at it that if our own economy and power strength is actually lower, in that instance, if we're not having, as we talked about, there is poverty in the land, there is insecurity, and you know, then we're saying that in those instances, and if we have, on the other hand, the strength of those oil thieves are stronger, definitely we'll see more of these oil thefts.
But whatever strength the oil thieves have belongs to the economy.
No, you know, they have their own. When we talk about their strength, we talk about their technology. Really, and that's what we are seeing there in the report, with details the way some of this stealing is done. You know, on the onshore we have those hot tapping, and on the offshore we have the cold tapping. Now these things require large technology. infrastructure that no common man can have. But of course, because of the gain we are seeing in oil prices, the high oil prices now is an incentive for people to also steal these things. So because of that, if they get any barrel they get now, they can easily trade it for money. And of course, that gives them enough fund to buy those higher technology for further vandalism and theft. So that's how the power play has become in the industry. And so it's a balance of power. Whoever is not really strengthening his own power, we tend to be losing.
So they are strengthening theirs, and they're getting more power with the surging oil prices. Now, whenever we talk about oil prices, there's also the issue of how come they are taking it across the border when we have so much security, so much Navy. And I remember, I think, an interview that Channels TV had with the Chief of Naval Staff, and he said the numbers that are being brandished everywhere are not real. They cannot be real because it will require large vessels, maybe in tens or hundreds, flying through, and there's no way that can happen, without it being stopped. What have you found in your research?
Thank you for that question. We actually reviewed those every sector, the stakeholders' perspective on all of this issue, and it's one of those issues that we raise in this report. Now, here's the thing. We found out that there are external dynamics to this thing, and there are, of course, internal dynamics. What I mean that, in fact, we drew an infographics that details how some of the stealings are done onshore and some of them offshore. Now, but then we find out that it's not everything that goes outside Nigeria. Really, there are some of them that get to be refined in the economy. When we talk about that, you remember now that we're talking about illegal refiners in the same oil-producing region. Now, some of these oil thieves are the one feeding them. So when we say we're losing this volume, some of them are actually being refined in the economy, and of course, it's circulating. That's why you can talk about, I think recently, the Customs Service said they arrested some 2 tankers with this dirty fuel. Now, those are the people that are getting some of those that are being stolen. But on the other hand, too, there are some of them that is actually being taken out of Nigeria. In fact, the Norwegian ship alluded to that fact, but they said it does not contain oil anyway. But of course, it points to the fact that there are some of those ships that come into our border that comes to load some of these things. So we found out that really, when you are looking at depending on the perspective you are looking at, you will actually be correct. Whether you are looking at it from the onshore or the offshore, you will really be correct, but it all depends on the volume. Not to say that we actually know that the Nigerian Navy are doing things in that instance. They are doing so much in that instance. In fact, they have a naval strategy that are helping them in that instance, but really there are still some lapses because some of this, some fuel uses fake documents, fake bill of lading. And of course, some of those things it's possible they are able to push through the Nigerian security architecture. So there are, on both sides, it's possible. And we've actually found out, we detail some of those things.
So did you find out possible solution?
Of course, it's one of our objectives really to identify the lapses that create the problem in the first place so that, of course, we can look at the way to block it. But let me say that it's not really, our problem as an industry, oil and gas, is not really only the oil theft. I think, but of course, we narrowed it because our interest, given that oil theft is the most pronounced, we narrowed it down to but we looked at other aspects of it. One of it is aging infrastructure. Our infrastructures are old. And some of those things are not being serviced as they are. So you could have their capacities, objective capacity, very, very low. But so some of those solutions we prefer, we have those quick fixes, what we call quick and dirty fixes, and of course we have those long-term solutions. The quick and dirty fixes, we're looking at ways we can actually strengthen the same security architecture to deal with this issue, and of course we are looking at, again, the technology. But one thing also, as I said, in the technology, we must develop superior technology to those folks. So another one, we're also looking at, really, let's punish those whom we catch as thieves. Let it be made public. Let's see that we are really punishing those guys. Because, see, punishment normally should create deterrence. But if people are not seeing the punishment that should create that deterrence, then come on, some of them will continue to go into it. So those are some of the quick fixes we're looking at. Of course, more, but on the long term, we're looking at maritime strategy. We're looking at making Nigeria the refining hub in Africa. So some of those long-term
All right, Mr. Ige, Tosin Ige, Senior Economist and Impact Research with Proscia Nigeria Limited. Thank you so much for sharing your findings with us. We do hope we can go beyond the books, into action. Thank you so much for your
Thank you for
morning. Yeah.